Hello, my internet viewing friends. Part 5. We're looking at numbers 35 through 42 now. Almost done with this huge packet of tests. So, number 35. Since we have our parenthesis group here squared, that means we can take the square root of both sides of this in order to solve. So square rooting both sides, we get x plus 3 then equals plus or minus. The square root of 25 is 5. A little bit of solving magicalness, and we get negative 3 plus or minus that 5. So we're gonna gotta go through each of the plus or the minus version, negative 3 plus 5 and negative 3 minus 5, and decide which of those two answers are gonna match up over here. Negative 3 plus 5 is 2, and negative 3 and negative 5 make a bigger negative 8. And that looks like this one. Winners. On your actual exam, though, it's a little bit different. It kind of looks like this, which honestly is easier than what we just did, in my opinion. But we got to do our solving first. We need to get it to where it says x squared equals the rest of the stuff. So just like if this was a plain x and this 2 wasn't here, we would subtract 7 on both sides, and we get 2x squared equals, what's that, 18. And then we would divide that by 2 and get x squared equals 9. Now, when we do our square root part, it's going to be a little bit easier because we just take our square root, so x equals plus or minus square root of 9 is 3. And so that's kind of the way the actual test question works. Solve for your x squared here first by moving these two numbers out the way, and then take your square root and get your plus minus number. So to me it's a little easier, but to each his own. Alright, how many real imaginary solutions are we going to get here? This is where we use that b squared minus 4ac. It's the discriminant. It's the inside the square root part of your quadratic formula. So, different answer choices. In order for two imaginary solutions to happen, the discriminant, the inside the square root part, has to be negative. It's negative because our square root would be a negative and thus give us I. And that's why we'd have two imaginary solutions. If we only have one solution, that means it came out to 0, because plus or minus 0 only gives us the one solution. You are never going to get one real and one imaginary. It can't happen. That's truly imaginary. So don't pick one real and one imaginary. And lastly, two real solutions is when it comes out to be positive. So those are all the different situations you have to work through there. All we got to do is plug in our numbers and then hopefully remember these things. 7 is A, B is a negative 1 here, and C is that 10. So B being negative 1, that's easy. Negative 1 squared minus 4 times A, which is 7, and C, which is 10. Negative 1 squared gives me 1 minus, well, 4 times 7 times 10. 4 times 7 is 28 times 10, so we got 280. And yeah, that gives me negative, what, 279. That's a big negative number. And since it's negative, we're going with A, imaginary solutions. Reason why, again, being that we got our plus minus square root of negative 279 all over 2A thing going on. So whatever out here, this is going to make I happen, and thus imaginations run wild. 37. What are our solutions to this one? Well, if you want to try and factor, go ahead, but you're probably not going to get anywhere. So we're going to use our negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a thing. Negative b plus or minus. Alright, so let's drop all of our wonderful numbers in there. We got a 1 for the a, negative 6 for the b, and 10 for c. So negative, negative 6, that's the most common mistake here. We've got the negative sign here, we've got the negative sign here, we've got to get them both in here. Plus or minus. All over 2 times 1. So now simplifying this, 6 squared gives me 36 minus 40. So that's positive, so I got 6 plus or minus the square root of negative 4. 36 minus 40 is negative 4 all over 2. Now, this is where we got to be careful, Square root of negative 4. That's going to be 6 plus or minus not just 2, but 2i all over 2. And because of this I, that's why we can't just factor it like you might want to, and that's why these ones have got to be wrong. And lastly here, since both of these things are divisible by 2, we cut them both in half and we get 3 plus or minus 1i, or just I by itself. And that leaves us with 3, or C, positive 3 and positive 3 here, not the negative. Guess how you get that negative? By screwing up this part right here. Hey, that's a nice face. It's like you hit a cyclops right in the eye. Odysseus style, I suppose. Wonder if you kids even read that these days in school. Do you read the Odyssey? I don't know. Alright. 8 plus I. 6 plus 2i. Going box method, because box method is what we do. 6 times 8 gives us that 48 in here. We get a 6. Oh, that was a big I. Didn't mean for that to happen. Got plus 16i out here, and plus, this is the important one, 2i squared. This is our important part because we all remember that our I squared is really just a negative 1. So we get 48. Put these two guys together, gives me plus what, 22i plus my 2i squared. So that I squared here really is just a negative 1, which means it goes away and changes that to minus 2. So 48 minus 2 becomes 46 plus my 22i. Winner. That was nice. Alright. Moving on. 39. Okay. Now you might get a little bit worried because we never actually graphed parabolas with the absolute value thing. But let me show you how this makes this problem actually easier. We do know that our less than or negative or equal to, less than or equal to here means we're going to have solid lines for our graph, just like they do with normal lines. So we get to cross out A and B. These ones would have been regular old signs. Maybe this one, I don't know. So that gets us to eliminate half of them without having to deal with the parabola. Now since both of those have the exact same graph in the same spot, we just got to decide, are we going to shade down below or are we going to shade up above? Well, nice thing for us, this symbol will shade up, this symbol will shade down. So there you go there. This one would be a greater than normal sign, this would be a less than normal sign. And that's it. If you don't remember that though, we can check our 0 point here. 0, plugging in for y and plugging in for our x's makes all of this go away. 0, is that less than or equal to negative 2? Is 0 less than negative 2? No. So do I want to shade right here where 0 is? No. That's why C is wrong, and we are choosing D, because 0, 0 does not work and therefore is not shaded down here in the bottom. So lots of different ways you can go through that. Not a hard problem, just looks scary. Same with this one, looks scary. We got all this crap going on. All we need to remember is that this guy here, that's going in there for our h sub 0, that's where we're dropping it from, and that the height that we want at the end, since we're waiting for it to hit the ground, is going to be a 0 here. So we get 0 equals our negative 16t squared plus 64. We're going to go through these same steps every time with this. So I'm going to add my t squared over to the other side because that makes my t positive. And who doesn't like t positive? I like iced tea, really. Wonder if that's a positive or a negative. Who knows? Alright, 16 divided by 16. Get that out of the way, so we got t squared equals. Now I'm just going to leave this here, 64 over 16, because I know my next step is going to be square root. And do I know what the square root of 64 is? I hope so. 8. Do I know what the square root of 16 is? Yes, it's 4. And what's 8 divided by 4? 2. And that's how we get our 2 seconds for how long it takes for the, I guess, boulder to hit the ground. Did they really go with a Wile E. Coyote joke in this one? I didn't even read it. Coyote and a roadrunner. Look at that. Alright. Almost through with today's stuff. So, graphing. Two different things we're looking for here. We're looking for where does it cross, where our intercepts are, which are the same things as the zeros up here. In this case, that's a 0, a -3, and a +4. Remember, our parenthesis groups always change when we're finding our zeros, and that x out here by itself is just 0 itself. So we're looking for 0, -3, and +4. That's looking pretty good for this guy. This guy's looking alright as well, but these ones not matching up. They got the 4 and the 3 switched. Not what we're looking for. So next we got to decide, am I going up on the right side or am I going down? Guess what tells us that? The sign in front of our leading coefficient, or the sign in the front. That x is positive, that means my right side is going up. So therefore this guy is going the right direction, and A is my answer. If this was a negative x right here, then we would have been going down on the right side and we would choose C. So there you go. Nice. Number 42. They actually changed and basically made this type of question the very last question on the test. But we'll look at it anyway. Again, positive, negative stuff going on here. This being negative means my right side is going downward. Since this is even, that means my left side is also going down. But that eliminates this guy, and so we're left with these two choices. Now the nice thing about y-intercepts is, just like with a line, this very last number here tells us where we need to cross here. Well, this looks like it's at a 2, and this looks like it's at a 3, so that'll work. And we can figure out which graph is which. And that's how you find your answer. You look at this back one here, and that tells you where our y-intercept is, just like y equals mx plus b form. It's just a whole lot more going out on the front. The type of question you're actually going to see there on number 42 is going to be factored like this, but what they're going to do is they're going to make us worry about the bounce point. And who doesn't love a good bounce point in their graph? So again, we're doing our opposites here. 0 is one of my intercepts, +2 and -3. So you would find those things and make sure they match up. And then we decide positive and negative. Well, it's positive out front here, so that means this side is going to be going up. But what I have to remember is that I need to bounce on my 0 because of the x squared. It's the same thing as when we had the parentheses squared. But they try to trick you by putting the x squared because it looks scarier. Alright, so we're going to go down through here. We're going to turn around. We are not going to go through 0. We're going to bounce. Oh, that turned out badly. And then go on out here. Man, I am out of practice on drawing these. This is a disgusting graph. Well, anyway, I hope some of that was helpful. If not, then I'm sorry you sat here and listened to this entire thing. But what else are you going to do? Go play some Modern Warfare or something, I guess. Alright, kids. One more of these things to get through the next day, and we're out of here and ready for our final. Good night, good luck, and be safe out there.